is not enough. We could burn like a flame through the
Okay, so hopefully you can see me. I can see myself, that's a good sign. My name's Nattyo, and this will be a run of Crash Team Racing Warpless. And if we're all okay on tech, I'll give you a countdown to start the timer on 3, 2, 1, go. So, if I just wait for this to load, and then I can start my splits as well. Got some more of those running as well. So this is Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation 1, originally released, I want to say 99, I never remember if it's 99 or 2000. And effectively the story of this game is that an evil alien called nitrous oxide has flown in from his planet called Gasmoxia with the intention of enslaving the entire population of the planet and turning it into a huge concrete parking lot unless we can beat him in a 1v1 race. So, like all sensible, planets, their response is, how do we know who the best racer is? Let's just race loads and loads of times, and the one person who wins all the races can go on a 1v1 against Oxide. So we'll be doing 16 trophy races, and then we will also be doing 4 boss races before the final boss showdown with Oxide. So there's 21 races in total. So you'll notice that a lot of the tech in this game, one of the most basic will be me doing these drifts. So this game has what's called a reserve system. So basically we need to be doing little boosts. So these drifts, where I am drifting, and then you notice the speedometer is filling up at the bottom right. So once that fills up, I hit the opposite shoulder button, and then I do a little mini turbo. So that fills up my reserve gauge. You can't see the reserve gauge, it's an invisible counter that the game tracks. So we want to keep our reserves high, because then that keeps the speed that I've gained through the fire coming out of the back of my car. So the fire coming out of my car is, called fire. So I get them from going over those green boost pads. Once I've gone over one of those boost pads, then all I need to do is keep my fire, and then I will keep my speed as well. So I need to keep reserves, so I need to go over a boost pad, do lots of drifts, and keep my reserves, keep the fire coming out of the back of my engine. So that's the most basic of techs. So the reason we have to keep our reserves up is because every frame the reserves decay. So if I don't do any drifts, if I don't do any jumps, I can get reserves if I jump a certain height. Or if I don't go any boost pads, my reserves will eventually deplete until I hit 0. Once I hit 0, any fire that you've gained will immediately go, you'll lose it, and you'll go back to a basic speed. So it's really important that we need to keep our fire, but also we need to know the best spots where we don't have to drift, we can drive straight, because obviously drifting isn't always quicker, so it's a balancing act between optimizing and going fast, and going safe and getting our fire. So the next tech I'm going to talk about is sort of downhills and a tech called speed ghosts. So whenever you go down a hill, it's most traditional time you get this, the game builds up your speed. So as you can expect, you go down a hill, you go faster. And then the game wants to take that speed away from us as soon as we hit the flat ground. So to stop this, we do what's called a froggy. So a froggy is where I hold one shoulder button and I mash the other shoulder button. And the idea is to minimize the contact with the ground, because the game doesn't take away our speed when we're in the air, but it does take away if we're in contact with the ground. So you'll notice at the bottom right, whenever I go down the hill, my speedometer, the needle, points all the way to the right. So that shows that I've got a speed ghost. And that's the speed we want to keep, because that's basically more speed than the game wants us to have, I guess is the best way of explaining it. So it's not just downhills that give us that speed. You can get that speed from propulsions, you can get that speed from going uphill, because sometimes the way the game does calculations with how your speed is determined. There is sort of a theory with sort of speed where it's like, okay, it's sort of like the speed you go down with, your gravitational speed, sort of doesn't get calculated properly, and then you get some extra speed forward. I think that's one of the theories. We don't exactly know exactly why the game gives you speed when you go up hills. But one thing...
Can I
yes?
just interject for a moment? Could you pause the run for a moment?
Ooh, we're pausing the
don't
run.
have game audio.
Game audio is gone. Is that mine? Hang
I
on.
think you might.
My game audio's gone. It's coming through on OBS, so I don't know where it's gone. Where is it? I've got 2 OBS sources.
I think we might cut to a technical issue screen.
It's back?
Oh, now it's working again, apparently.
You know what? I'm going to turn my other OBS off. Maybe that's getting in the way. I've turned it up, so I hope it's not too loud. Let me put that down. Do you want me to carry on from here, or...?
Yes, please carry on. Yeah.
Cool.
I've got the go ahead.
Ah! I've dropped my controller. I need to get rid of my splits. Alright. 3, 2, 1, go. So, sorry about that. I don't know why my game audio stopped. It's on line in. It's not my capture card. It goes straight into my PC. So that's strange, but it's all fixed, hopefully. I am not very good at reading chat, so I apologise if people complain about it, because I cannot read and play games. So, anyway, back on track. So, you'll notice we're doing more speed ghosts in this track. The first hub is all speed ghosts, apart from Crash Cove, which only has a very small one. But Roost Tubes, which track we just did, this is Mystery Caves, and Sewer Speedway, which is coming up, are all very heavily reliant on these speed ghost techs. So getting those is really important. So you'll notice that on the first lap, I've got a Wumper crate. So this game has Wumper where you pick up a Wumper and then your speed is increased for each Wumper you pick up. I don't remember the exact value of each Wumper, but basically every single Wumper gives you additional bit of speed until you hit 9 Wumper. The 10th Wumper doesn't give you speed, it just gives you a power-up for your item. So when you've got 10 Wumper, you'll notice that my TNT item has turned into a Nitro at the top, so all the pickups are a bit more powerful. But we're not too worried about that, we're really just worried about the speed. So when you have 9 Wumper, which is your max speed boost, you get, it's in the region of 1.8 to 2% extra speed, which doesn't sound like a lot, but also what we found is that the additional speed from the Wumper makes things like speed go. So this attack I'm doing now makes these actually a little more consistent as well, so they're a bit easier to do when you have the extra Wumper. So we don't always go for Wumper in every track. Because Mystery Caves is a long track, it makes more sense to go for Wumper. Shorter tracks like Crash Cove, the first track we did, I only get Wumper on the first lap, because to get the second crate is too much of a detour. So we don't waste time going to getting 2 crates on some tracks, because 1 crate is guaranteed to give us at least 5, or it could give us up to 8. So between 5 and 8 Wumper. So if we get 8 Wumper, the second crate might not actually be worth it anyway, because it will only give us 1 Wumper worth of speed, which if you imagine 9 is a 2% increase, so 1 Wumper would be, 0.2 odd % or something. So you'll notice I'm playing on the PAL version. So the PAL version, like all old PAL games, runs at 25 FPS to be displayed on 50Hz TVs. So this is the European, Australian, and a few other places, the version that was available there. And what's special about the PAL version is that because it was released in Europe, you have lots of different languages, because they only speak one language in America and you only speak Japanese in Japan. So the NTSC EU and the NTSC J versions don't have a language menu because they are only in one language, whereas the PAL is in sort of the main European languages. So what they what they forgot to take out was that you can actually just cancel the language menu. So just by pressing triangle on the language select menu, you don't select a language, and that throws in what we call the language glitch, aptly named, and that basically removes all of the text in the game. So you'll notice that there's no thing telling me what my course time, the 1 doesn't have an ST at the end to stand for first, the loading screens don't say loading, so there's no text anywhere, and it'll also mess up some of the cutscenes. So the main reason we do this is it skips one of the cutscenes later on. It does jumble up the cutscenes as well, so there's sort of a net gain of about 10 to 15 seconds, because some of the cutscenes are longer, but you do get that one cutscene which doesn't play at all, so that is a little bit faster there. But also, whenever we win a trophy, the game says a voice timer. It says, "Congratulations, you win a trophy." And basically, because we don't have language on, we also don't have voice lines. You'll notice that my character doesn't say anything, none of the other racers are saying anything. And that line also just doesn't play, it just doesn't exist. So that saves about 2 to 3 seconds in 3, 6, 9, 12 individual places. So then the NTSC version can skip those pause menus through a 1-frame trick, but it's only viable from Hub 3. I'll mention when that's possible. But you'd have to get 12 1-frame tricks, whereas the PAL version gets them automatically. And because Naughty Dog developed this game, they, much like the Crash Bandicoot platformers, they actually put time into optimizing the physics. So the game runs compared to the milliseconds, not the frame rate. So that's why we sort of are able to play the tracks similarly to NTSC. But see, because PAL has 25 FPS, the calculations for things like the propulsion, so when we jump off a hill, so this one in particular, that's a propulsion right there, they're a bit easier on PAL because the game doesn't calculate them quite the same as NTSC, because it only has 25 frames worth to do those kinds of things in. And also, when we go downhill, these speed ghosts are actually quicker on PAL as well. But if we get one of the big detriments to PAL is that our little froggy height, so whenever we do a single hop, we only are in the air for 23 milliseconds, NTSC are in the air for 26 milliseconds. So that doesn't sound like a big difference, but a big issue with PAL is that if you get a hop, which is only in the air for 14 milliseconds, you won't get a hop after it, so it cuts right there like that just happened. So it cuts your hop, and basically you lose a bit of speed because you can't get a hop, so then you're in contact with the track. So that's right. Also, for some reason, Ripperoo talks absolute gibberish, but even though there's language glitch, he doesn't say anything. And yeah, I also noticing people on about Peruvian tech. In Rouge Tubes, not only can you just get a speed ghost from a downhill, there's also the little ditch that I was aiming for. So you can get speed from a downhill, then you can go into a ditch and get a propulsion out of the ditch, and that can just give you some insane speed. So you can sort of get speed from speed ghosts, but then you can increase the extra speed you've already got, which makes some tech in some tracks really cool to see, but they're also really difficult as well. So now we're just gonna traverse to Hub 2. So this is where we'll see. This is where we'll start seeing some item RNG playing a part in the run. So there, as you'll notice, I've been picking items up, but I don't really use them. There's a lot of weapons that you can pick up to obviously shoot at the other players. Hopefully, at no point in this run do I need to attack the other players, because I should be miles ahead of them. And a lot of the time we don't really like to drop items in our path because there's a good chance that it'll still be there. The AI do have set paths, so you can drop an item and there's a good chance someone will hit it. But if you drop it on somewhere that's not their path at all, then they won't hit it. So that's why we've got to be careful not to drop items, because my racing lines are pretty much the same every lap, so I don't want to put obstacles in my path where I'm either going to have to hit them or detour. So it's a small speed ghost down that hill, and then when we go onto the grass, we can do a hop, and there's a little spot on the grass where we can do an extra mid-air MT. And we'll go down here, I'm going to shoot this door. So we get a speed ghost down the hill to give us loads of speed. Oh dear lord, that is a weird propulsion. Okay, so there's some PAL shenanigans in place. So I got a speed ghost through that shortcut, and then I landed on a hill in such a way that it pushed me forward. So you can land on the hills in quite really good results sometimes. So sometimes you can just get shot upwards, sometimes you get shot forward. So that's unfortunately I can't use this TNT. So I want an item that I can shoot forward to open that door. So a potion, a bomb, or a shield are the 3 items. And there's a 40% chance of getting a nitro, and I think a 40% chance of getting a potion. So there's more chance of getting an item you can use, but unfortunately got unlucky and only managed to go through the shortcut once. Each time you go through the shortcut, it saves about 2 seconds. But It's a one thing that's actually out of control, but it's RNG fortunately doesn't play a huge part in this run. There is one big what's the word, hurdle later on when we get to Tiny Arena, which is the only other major spot where an item plays a big role. One item that's really useful to roll for is a turbo item. For some tracks where we lose our fire, so when we go... Well, let me just... Okay. So sometimes we might do a shortcut or something that we lose our fire. So it's really important that we have a boost item. So a boost item, when we have 10 Wumper, gives us the same effect as if we went over a turbo pad. So that gives us our full fire back when we might have lost it. So that's also a really good item to get. But for the most part, it's not really worth worrying about the items we pick up. I usually throw them out anyway. So this track is very deceiving. Coco Park is. It's an incredibly basic track if you just play it casually. But there are two really annoying speed ghosts. So there's one here, which I want to try and hit this downhill. Sort of get some speed, but not really enough. And then this first grass cut is also really tricky to pull off. So I need to sort of hop. There we go. So I need to get a hop over that. And then I clear the grass. There's also a speed ghost here. That's a really tricky one to get on PAL. It's not all too consistent. And this speed ghost is... you sort of hope. I didn't unfortunately get that one again, but that's okay. That was a low 24 lap, so that's fine. So that's quite a difficult track. So as I was saying about NTSC, with NTSC, because you can do higher jumps, things like speed ghosts are, even though they're slower, you can keep them a lot more consistently. So NTSC is a lot more of a consistent version to play, and I think most would argue it is the easier version. There are some places where PAL is superior, there's some places where PAL is easier, but for the most part NTSC is the easier version. I also haven't explained why I'm playing PAL. Over the whole run, on average, PAL saves about 10 to 15 seconds, sometimes more, sometimes less. It depends on the condition of your console. So for me, it would be about a 15-second time save if I were to use PAL. So that's why I've chosen to choose PAL over NTSC, which I've used NTSC for about 4 years before this. So quite a change. But again, for the speedrun, you can use either version. The only version you can't really viably use is NTSC J, because the cutscenes are just too long in J. The Oxide cutscene, especially right at the end of the game, is about 1 minute and 10 seconds or something longer. So you lose 1 minute and 10 just from a cutscene. And because the game drives the exact same as the NTSC U version, you're not gaining anything elsewhere, you just have really long cutscenes, so it's not really viable to play. So I'm not explaining this track. So this track, the spiral is an absolute pain to do with a fast character. I have also not explained my character. I'll do that after. So hopefully I want to get like a jump here, and then keep my speed to land on this pillar, and then jump on this wall. So then we jump on here. This is classed as off-road, and the game's trying to push us off, but we can ride that wall and land just before the finish line and cross the line. So that's the tech. That's the first track that's got a unintended shortcut, as it were. That's a little more than just a corner cut or something. That's a genuine shortcut that we take that's not intended. So as I mentioned, I'm using the character I'm using. So there's 4 classifications for characters in this game. There's the balanced characters, which are Crash and Cortex. There's the slow stroke handling characters, which are Polar and Pura. There's the acceleration characters, which are Coco and Engine, and then there's the speed characters, or the fast characters, which are Tiny and Dingodile. And as you can expect, the bigger the character, the faster their car goes. So the big 2 characters in this game, Tiny and Dingodile, have what's called a speed class, and they have a speed stat of 6 and an acceleration and handling stat of 1.5. So their handling is really bad, but fortunately in this game, a poor handling doesn't always mean a bad thing. So tracks like this, where there's lots of straight lines, we can do our drifts and get our reserves, and we don't have to compromise by overturning. So even in time trials, so there's another class as well of characters, well, Penta Penguin. On the PAL and NTSCJ version, Penta Penguin has max stats, so he has max acceleration, handling, and top speed. And for the most time trials, Penta Penguin is faster, but sometimes it is better to use Tiny or Dingodile or just a fast character because of their low handling. So for a speedrun, the speed stat is really important, and that's what the speed stat and the poor handling in some of these tracks is really what saves a lot of time, because we did used to use acceleration character for the longest time just for the extra bit of handling they had at the cost of their top speed. So that's why we use this character. You probably see more Dingodile than Tiny. I always prefer Tiny as a character, but some might argue his model's a bit obnoxious, so it does cover a bit of the screen. So that's the main thing with characters. So because I've got language glitch, so we've got Pinstripe Head not saying any words to us on top of Papu's big old body. So this is actually Pinstripe's first cutscene. If anyone knows CTL, this is the Foist cutscene, a legendary line. So this replaces the Papu cutscene that you should be watching. So that's one of the cool things with NTS with PAL, is that you kind of get these funny cutscenes. It's a shame that they don't really say anything, but you know, can't have it all. So the boss tracks, I didn't really mention this in Rue, but the bosses, you have a 1v1 race with the champion of that area. I don't know how Papu is a champion kart racer, seeing as he's a be surprised how he's managed to have all that time to practice, really. But he is the champion of this area, so I have to beat him in the 1v1 race. So basically, what Papu does is he throws potions here, there, and everywhere on his beautiful pyramids. I am bad. Let me fix that. Okay. So he throws potions all over his beautiful pyramids, and if I'm fast enough, which is most of the time, we start seeing these potions. So there's all the potions he's got and thrown about. I messed up. I'll try this once, because I don't like this strat. Okay, that loses 10 seconds, that's cool. So all the bosses pretty much do, they cheat, effectively, and they just throw items down on the track for you to drive into. So we have to try our best to avoid them. Most of the time they're not really much of an issue, because we're just so far ahead of them that we don't have to worry, but obviously because we almost lap them in some cases, we have to be careful not to hit them on the last lap. So that that shortcut can go very wrong. Missing that shortcut, if you miss the jump onto the wall, it's a 5-second loss. If you miss that jump, it's 10 or more seconds. So here's the last Pinstripe cutscene. So cool thing with, as I was saying about how cutscenes are moved around. So the second Pinstripe cutscene is much shorter than the second Papu cutscene that you'd get in NTSC, but I think the first Pinstripe cutscene is longer. So you can see sort of the actual cutscene that you see on PAL is the length of the Pinstripe cutscene, which isn't the same as Papu's cutscene. So you do lose and gain time each cutscene. And yeah, the items, I mean, the only one that makes sense is Ripperoo, and I guess Pinstripe shoots bombs. Komodo Joe, we'll see later, shoots TNTs and Nitros, which doesn't really make sense. And I guess Papu shoots potions, because that's one of the items had left, so there you go. So this is Blizzard Bluff. This is a notoriously pain-in-the-ass track, excuse my French, because of this shortcut, which, there we go, I failed, and I lost 10 seconds. So I wanted to actually jump over that fence, and even with the amount of practice I do on this track, I still cannot get that fence jump every single time. Usually it's 2 out of 3, so let's hope I don't do that again. But yeah, we might be losing some more time. So we want to hopefully jump over that fence. We want to get these hills. So these hills are, when I was talking about, you can get speed ghosts from going uphill. And those hills are a perfect example of that. Oh my god. Oh, this is terrible. That's a 20 seconds lost. We love Blizzard Bluff. So... what was I saying? So, yeah, so... The first hill on the section of hills can give you a speed ghost, which doesn't make sense because you're going up, not down, but you can get a speed ghost. Also, there's a tech called buffer jumps, which I'm going to try and do here. Oh, that's a shame, I didn't get anything there. There's a tech called buffer jumps, where if you jump and then you come into contact... Oh my god, I've never marked 0 out of 3 in a while. That is shameful. That is really that is really bad. That's 30 seconds lost. Dear lord, I hate this track. If you can't tell. Oh well. So as I was saying, so buffer jumps. If you jump and then you're at the bottom of a hill or a slope or something like that, you get a second jump, which is, I think, as long as you're. Someone correct me. I think it's 14 against that 14 milliseconds. So if you jump and then you come into contact with the ground within 14 milliseconds of your jump, the game gives you a second jump by default. So in some spaces you basically get a jump and then you immediately get a jump as soon as you can. So that's a really important tech because you can actually go, you can keep your speed in some sections, and it's a little faster than just doing a single jump. I might get hit by that. Oh, did I hit the track? I didn't hit the track. Oh dear, this is a train wreck. I'm sorry. I was doing runs yesterday and they were all train wrecks, so I don't really excuses. I switched to PAL about 2 weeks ago. I should have just stuck with NTSC, but I wanted to learn PAL. Here we are. Realizing that PAL is really annoying to play. Oh well, so... The minecarts are on the same cycle each time. That first minecart you can beat on PAL, which is why I went for it. I'm hitting the walls. This is a fine cycle. Okay. So the cycles are the same. As long as I hit that first cycle, I'm fine. I won't hit the other cycles. But unfortunately, because that first cycle is so tricky to get, and I thought I could go for it, I should have played it safe and just got run over and then taken the shortcut slow. But we go faster than the car as long as I don't mess up. So we got through it that way. So on PAL, the minecarts and any cycles that can damage you actually go slower than NTSC. So they're straight up 5th-6 speed. So the minecarts go slow, so you have to be careful not to drive into the back of them. Or if they're behind you, you're good to just go straight through and they won't cause you any trouble. So yeah, that is unfortunate. That's a really difficult thing to recover from, because you just sort of lose your speed. I could have just got squashed and carried on the track. I thought I clipped the track. If you clip the track as you fall down, then it updates your checkpoint to that part of the track. Unfortunately, I didn't manage that. So here on one of the more notorious tracks, so because I'm playing PAL, you might see a tack called the Boomerang, which is just a quick lake jump. Unfortunately, I won't be going for that because... Actually, you know what? We'll go for it lap 3. We'll try one for the boys. But it is a pain in the ass on PAL. So we're just going to turn around. I'm going to jump on that fence. Okay, and I'm on the other side. So that skip just saves going around just a bit of a U-turn section. But there is a quicker method where you just go from driving forward and do a U-turn and hit that wall, which saves about 2.5 seconds each time. So it's it's one of the trickiest single shortcuts in the game. And unfortunately, because of PAL, even though you feel like you did everything right, sometimes you can just land on the top of the wall and it doesn't give you enough height. You just sort of go forward and land in the water. So it's incredibly a lot more trickier on PAL. It's not impossible, but it is very tricky. This is why I'm doing this strat for at least the first 2 laps. We'll try one. My luck with doing this tech in marathons is non-existent. I don't know if I've ever gotten it. I think twice. I think I got it in a single run. I know one year I got absolutely nothing. That was live at ESA. That was always fun. So it is really difficult to do. Again, the seals are a bit slower on PAL because they're at 5th, 6th speed. If you hit a seal, you spin out and lose. You also lose 1 point and you take damage. I'm throwing these nitros, because as you notice, when I do the skip, I don't have any speed afterwards, so I'm trying to get some speed. Oh, that's a shame. I hit the top of the wall, I think, but that's sort of what happens. You hit the top, but you just don't get any. You don't get any distance. You just fall straight down into the hole. So that's unfortunate. So I wasn't going to go for 3 out of 3 anyway. I don't do 3 out of 3 in runs, but it's a marathon. You gotta try these things. Gotta show them off, just to basically prolong the amount of time that you have me on your screens. I think at the rate of this run. So that's Polar Pass. So now we're coming up to Tiny Arena. So Tiny Arena has, out of all the tracks, this has had one of the biggest developments, because in 2020, I think this is almost an anniversary of this shortcut, but lots of work done by Tiziano, Red Heart, Corky, probably some others, sorry if I've forgotten who, but sort of did some work and sort of realised that there's a part of this track which we can skip. So this also makes, this is called a start line glitch. So what we're trying to do is there's an area before the finish line called an NMZ, which is a no mask zone. So in order for a lap to count, we have to drive from just the ordinary part of the track to that part of the track, and then across the line. I'm missing all these iron boxes, I can't make those. So the reason this, hopefully when I get it, so the reason this tech works is because we go onto that no mask zone, and then we're hopefully going to go over the wall onto a later part of the track, and the game thinks that that part of the track is actually just after the finish line, and it should then reward us with a lap. So that's how this trick works. But that's basically how this game determines whether you're cheating or not. Because if you go backwards, you go from the start of the lap to the no mask zone, and then you go back over it, and then the game goes, actually, hang on, you just went backwards. That's not allowed. So that's put the nitro down now. So hopefully turn around. Oh, that was nothing. I'm not even going to pretend that was good. So we have a second try. You can only do this twice. As I say, you can't go backwards, because if you go backwards, the game knows you've gone backwards. And once you jump over that wall, the game will just respawn you. But because you're just in a giant checkpoint area, you basically actually soft lock yourself. You can't carry on because the game keeps respawning you. So that's also something to watch out for. So it's why we can't do it on lap 1. Because it saves, if you do it twice, it saves about 1 minute and 10 seconds over just driving the track normally. Because of setup, it's a little slower. For time trials, you can do this without using a nitro. You can just jump straight over that wall. The tech is incredibly difficult, and it's actually more possible on POW. It is possible on NTSC. I believe only 1 or 2 people ever did it. Because POW sort of clips into the wall a little bit more, it's my understanding. So, because you sort of clip into the wall, you can get a bit more height off the wall. It's a really tricky tech to actually do without the aid of a nitro. But nitro makes it, I say it makes it viable for speedruns. Hey, there we go. Well, this run isn't very good, but I don't even need one for its lap 3. So, you notice I'm on lap 3 now, so the game, I've jumped over that wall, and the game's gone, okay, you've just crossed the line. And because the area after the finish line, this track is huge, this track, sorry, that's how big the track is. So, because that area after the line is so big, because the track is so big, so that's why that area, it actually thinks we've crossed the line. So, managed to save about 30, 40 seconds just doing once at least. So, at least I got it once. I was worried it was going to be a 0 out of 3 marathon, which has been about my luck in every speedrun I've done. But, hey, that's always cool. So yeah, so now we're back on to boss races. You notice we didn't have a cutscene before Komodo Joe, so that cutscene just doesn't play because of the language glitch. So Joe doesn't have... Okay, I didn't know what to do there. I thought that was fast enough, apparently not. I am going so slow. Okay. So because the game doesn't know what cutscene to play, or doesn't have one loaded, so we don't get a cutscene there. It might just be like is trying to find someone else's cutscene which doesn't exist. I'm not sure the reason why we don't get a cutscene, but the Komodo Joe cutscene is 22 seconds long on NTSC, so that's just a free 22 seconds that we get back on PAL. So that's always cool. We've got that little text, so if you go in there with enough speed, you can do 4 hops, and then on the last hop you can U-turn back onto the track, and that's about the quickest you can go through there on with a speed character, because that turn is 2... Oh, that's a Nitro. I didn't even see that. Any blind Nitros, so Joe drops items, but he throws TNTs into the air, or he drops a Nitro on the track. So because he throws TNTs in the air, they land on the ground and they explode, and then he drops a Nitro. So the reason he doesn't drop that many items, and then we actually catch up with the few Nitros, and they are not in consistent places, they are all over the damn place. So you can't judge, you can't guess where there's going to be a Nitro, unfortunately. And that's the blind one that it catches you out all the time. So now we get a spoiler to the enemy, little old nitrous oxide. But actually we just defeated Joe. Technically I can just end the timer here. We've beaten Oxide, let's finish about 30 minutes in. But fortunately not, we've still got one more hub to do. This cutscene for some reason doesn't play the right length. I think it plays Joe cutscene length, and then Oxide finishes talking and just stares at you. I don't really understand, because all the other cutscenes finish when the person stops talking, but that one doesn't. He just sort of finishes talking, then looks at you. That's fine. So we're going to go through into Hub 3, Hub 4. We've got 3 keys, and we're going to start getting into some of the more trickier tracks, which I think a lot of new runners think, but honestly Hub 3 is the worst thing as well. But hey, what can you do? So this is Engine Labs, which we're going into now, is the longest track in the speedrun, as long as you get Tiny Arena Skip. And we're going to start introducing new tech called Super Turbo Pads and getting a USF, which stands for Ultimate Sacred Fire. I don't really talked about the naming of the things in this game. A lot of things were named, you know, 2005 by a group of friends who compete in each other to be the best at the game, and they find techs and they sort of name them on the spot. So there's a tech in this track called USF, Ultimate Sacred Fire. So that is when we go over a super turbo pad and we have reserves. So when we go over a super turbo pad, the game gives us this turbo speed, and that's the maximum amount of speed we can physically have in the game that these super turbo pads give us. So in order to keep that speed, so I'm going to jump on this pad, and I'm not going to do a jump, I'm just going to land, and then I keep this speed. So as long as I don't overwrite this, as long as I don't do any jumps, no drifts, nothing like that, as long as I don't overwrite that speed, I get to keep it as long as I want, or until my reserves run out. So it's really important to build up reserves in order to keep this. Because once your reserves run out, you then run out of your speed. So it's really important to do lots of good drifts. If you do run out of reserves early, then you might just be easier off just doing a bigger jump, as you normally would. So unfortunately, we only see this tech in... This tech is available in all 4 tracks in Hub 4, so Cortex Castle will see it, and it's also possible to do in Hot Air Skyway and Oxide Station, but we won't see them because it's quicker to do the shortcuts and do the USF tech. But that is the actual maximum amount of speed you can get. The game is hard-coded, so you can't go any faster than that. It's physically impossible to go faster, so we'll just take the max speed. That's fine. That's what we're after anyway. You can sort of hit... I believe you can hit that sort of speed by doing some of the really precise speed ghosts in some other tracks, or very close to it. But because we have reserves, the game doesn't want to take that speed away from us. But if we were to lose reserves, the game wants to just immediately take that speed away. So that's how the tech works here. I've been rambling a lot. Is there any donations or anything the host wants to say?
I will keep it brief, and I just want to give a big thank you to one of our supporters, ESA. Apart from giving us this channel to post the marathon on, they also help us with gear, technical assistance and sponsors. Be sure to check out ESA's next event, ESA Wins 2021, from the 14th to the 21st of February. And yeah, keep the donations coming in.
Cool. Yeah, I think there's actually going to be, I believe Hitmo's doing a CTR run at ESA Winter as well, so there's more CTR, and Hypno is a lot more consistent at this game than I am. So he'll probably do a lot better job than this, but hey, we're having fun. So this is Cortex Castle. This is, I think I've used Pain in the Ass a few too many times, but this is a difficult track to play with Tiny, because Tiny can't turn. He can't turn very well. He has trouble with these corners. But this is a consistent track, would you believe it? But there's a USF, so here we are. It's a Super Turbo Pad. And we're going to try my best to shimmy through that spider. I'm a bit wide, that's fine. So we can't really keep this one very far, because if we were to go over that boost pad with that USF speed, the boost pad would overwrite our USF, and then we'd lose all our speed. So it's not worth going for lots of reserves just to keep that speed. We might as well just focus on cornering. If you were to play with a character who can handle, then you can at least drive to that boost pad, and then you can get the speed that you've gained from USF, you can use it to do a sort of propulsion off the ramp, and then hopefully keep reserves on the other side. So the most difficult thing with Tiny is just keeping reserves, because go shimmy. He shouldn't be there if I was fast enough, but he was, number 9. So because I've got to hit this boost pad, because I did a U-turn, it's not something I mentioned before. If I do a U-turn, which is holding square down in a direction, that's the down arrow. And I can do a really sharp turn. Alternatively, if you just press square, or if you hit a if you hit a wall, aptly timed, very nice. If you hit a wall, you immediately lose your reserves as well. So that's why this is really difficult, because I need to do good boosts, but also not hit any walls. But we don't get any reserves on that first boost pad because we U-turn onto it. So we have to be careful there. So I'm just going to Froggy. Oh, I hit the wall. So, like before with the Speed Ghost, if you have a Froggy and then you lose your reserves, you can actually still keep that speed as if you had a Speed Ghost. So, just by Froggying, you can carry on driving and keep that little bit of speed that you've still got left until you sort of hit a boost pad or a jump or something. So, now we're on to... We only have 2 more tracks, but we do both of them twice, so we've got 4 more tracks to do. I forgot to look behind me. On PAL, if you press R2 entering Crash Cove, Mystery Caves, and this track, you save a little bit of time because the game doesn't lag, and I forget to do it every time, but never mind. So we're going to do a shortcut here. So we're going to drive up here. So this game doesn't have sort of traditional checkpoint system like something like Mario Kart. As you drive the track, you have a progression counter and you have a checkpoint counter, and they both sort of add up as you drive. So the further into the track you drive, the further your progression adds up. So we need to go far enough forward that we set our progression high enough so that when we go backwards and jump to the lower part of the track, the game realizes that that is an acceptable thing to do and lets us do it. If we don't drive forward, so this section here, I'm going to drive forward. So if I don't drive forward here and set my progression, so my progression will be the furthest I go there, and then that's set now. So that's as far as I've gone in the track. So when I jump down here, the game lets me go down here and doesn't try and pick me up and say, oh, you went off-road or cheating or whatever. So that's how that trick works. There's also, as I said, there's a progression counter and there's a checkpoint counter. The progression counter is always, I believe it's always recording. So whether you're in the air, whether you're... In some spots it doesn't, I'm not going to give false information, but for the most part it is recording where you are. The checkpoint system only records when you're on valid ground, I believe. So they sort of talk to each other, but your progression and checkpoint is set to this spot because we're driving on the track. And then when we go down here, that's how it just lets us do this. So commonly referred to as just loading the track, which isn't technically right, but a lot of people sort of recognize that as loading the track, because you don't physically load the track's already loaded, it's just how your progression works. And there's a little strat we're going to do right at the end for a little bit of style points. Hell yeah, there we go, there's a hairpin. So if I jump really late and do a U-turn, so holding square and down and hold left, I can do a jump over that wall and just skip the last corner. It looks easier than it is, doesn't save a lot of time, but definitely worth to do at least 1 out of 3. The madman that I was used to do all 6 hairpins because we do that track again. I don't do that anymore, but you know what? We'll go with that. So now we're coming into Oxide Station. Probably one of the hardest, if not the hardest track for a lot of people. Because there's a lot of technical shortcuts going on. So we're going to try and hit square, hit this wall, and we're going to jump down here. So again, like we said in Hot Air Skyway, I go down... Oh, hello AI, okay. Oh, nice. That's cool. So we go down to the bottom of the track. Ooh, I don't like that angle. So we go down to the bottom of the track to load our progression. So we jump down and then our progression is set to the base of the spiral. And then we drive back up. So the first jump down is a skip, obviously, and it sets us up to go backwards. And then we go back down, we go up, and then we can skip forward onto that second part of the track. And then there's also an easy jump after that bit. You don't need to do anything fancy for that jump. That's obviously probably an overlook by the developers. They didn't realize you could jump over there. So we do it again. On this wall, jump down, get our progression, and then go backwards. There's no CPU players this time, so nothing to get in my way. And then time that. The drift. Oh, nice. And then U-turn over this hill. As long as I get 150 on my speedometer at the bottom, which is 150 milliseconds in the air, as long as I hit 150, the bar will go red and I'll get a full fire. So again, as if I hit a turbo pad, I'll get a full amount of speed back immediately from as soon as I land on the ground there. So that's really important. That's why I can do a U-turn there, because I don't need to worry about what fire I have. That's a low 39. We'll take that. 3 out of 3. Ooh, that's the hard bit for me. Ooh, we're fast enough that the AI is just doing their lap 2. Jump up here. Ooh, that's fine. There we go. You know what? If I'm gonna mess Blizzard Bluff up 3 times, I'm at least gonna get a perfect Oxide Station. We'll take those. So again, this is one of the more trickier tracks. There's some speed ghosts you can do at the end here. So here, you notice the speedometer. Whenever the speedometer's full, I've got speed ghosts. It's not always technically faster to keep them. It depends where it is. That was a low 39 as well. If I only had my splits running, that would have been a very good Oxide Station. Apart from the spiral, which is a little out of my control, that was pretty good. So now we've got Komodo Joe on Pinstripe's head. This cutscene, I think, is a little longer as well, because Komodo Joe talks very slowly. This is the cutscene that is actually skipped. This is the one we don't see when we race Komodo. So this is the 22-second one. But we've got to race Pinstripe. So we're racing Pinstripe on his home track, which is Hot Air Skyway. Pinstripe is the only boss who doesn't leave a load of crap on the track. So Pinstripe shoots bombs backwards. And that's right, he shoots them backwards. So as long as I'm in front of him, he can't do anything to me. So that's what we're going to try and do. Stay in front of Pinstripe. So around here, get our progression, jump back down. It's a nice corner cut there. Try and get this bumper crate if I can, but I'm usually focused on getting the shortcut. Ooh, I landed on top of the hill. It's a little slow, but still gets the shortcut. I also didn't mention this one. This one's just second nature at the point. You can do a U-turn here, jump over this fence. This part of the track you can drive on. Probably discovered by everyone when they were a kid, or at least a lot of people. So that's always a nice little skip. Skips quite a lot of the track actually, and it's doing it fast is quite tricky, but you know that setup is quite a nice consistent thing to do. So I quite like that setup. So here, that might not be far enough. Oh, we might see what happens. So got that one fella. Some U-turning here needs to be easier. If I'm playing well enough, when you hit that downhill, you can actually get a speed ghost, and it gives you lots of speed. I'm really hoping I can get it on lap 3 to show it off. So it's really cool. We can do a double jump here. I haven't talked about double jumps. If you jump on a boost pad, then jump again, the second jump gives you a bit of a speed ghost sort of push forward, which saves a very little amount of time. But because I said before about PAL, which has smaller jumps, so things like that are a bit easier because you aren't going to jump over the boost pad. So back, ooh, nice clean corner. Let's get this, U-turn. Aw, I didn't get any speed ghosts, that's unfortunate, but you can just basically just shoot through that section with lots of speed, and it saves a little bit of time obviously, but PAL especially has lots of speed that it can build up there. Can we go 2 for 2 on hairpin? Ooh, there we go. That's PAL hairpin. PAL hairpin's a little bit more difficult because you don't jump quite so high, but 38, lap 3. So now we've got the final cutscene, which again, so we've got the second part of Komodo Joe's cutscene, which again we haven't seen yet, and then we have my favourite cutscene coming up, which is the Oxide cutscene. When we get to it. Also, this is the last track, so time will be about 2 minutes. I'll give you a warning when I'm on the last lap. So we've got floating head Papu on Oxide's body. So this combination of cutscenes actually loses about 10 seconds on PAL, unfortunately. So that's why I was saying about language glitch. You save some, you lose some. Overall, you do save time with the cutscenes, but that cutscene is specifically a little quicker. I think it's the Komodo Joe cutscene in particular that's quite long. But Oxide's cutscene's very short, whereas Papu's isn't. So Oxide, he's here to race us fairly. Yeah, so fate of the galaxy in Tiny's hands right now. Oh, that's the most difficult one, and oh, it's a shame. The first one's always difficult because of where Oxide is. We can get a clean recovery. I'll take a clean recovery. Take a clean recovery any day of the week. So hopefully we don't mess up the second bit. So, ooh, that was ooh, okay. All right. The walls in this track are very bouncy. You can drive on them, obviously, but they are very bouncy. So that was a bit sketch, but hey, we did it. It's a marathon. So speed goes here. Keep it a little bit. So Oxide, as you can expect from the final boss, he's a bit of throws everything at you. So he throws some potions, he throws nitros, TNTs, bombs, you name it. He throws everything onto the track. So that was risky. That was a W turn. That's not something I like to do, but hey. So hopefully we won't see anything. Sometimes his potions do end up on the wrong parts of the track because he just throws them everywhere. He throws about 4 or 5 and they land in random spots. And yes, they land in random spots, and that is the big issue as we enter lap 3 because we will start catching up with where he's dropped potions. So even though this is the last boss of the race, we do actually catch up with him on lap 3. So as we come in, 39, I'll take a 39. So these potions are completely randomly placed. We'll go through those 2 onto the wall. Perfect. Give me a boost item so I don't have to go to that boost pad. Hopefully we can get the last bit, and I can breathe again. Time's coming up. Put me on the wall. No, put me on the wall. Put me on the wall. Ooh, there we go. Time is coming up shortly. I've just got to finish this end section. So I didn't mess up. So if you mess up too much, you can see Oxide on the map is just a little bit behind me. So if you mess up too much, you have to follow Oxide on this section. But in fact, we're just going to lap him. And this is just a little end section. This is a bit where your heart rate is 300 beats per minute. And we're coming up to the end line. As soon as I crash the line, it is time. So that is Crash Team Racing. I don't know what timer is. I don't know if the timer was reset at any point. But so we've got Tiny doing his dance. Oxide's very angry because he's been beaten, and because we've run the PAL version, as soon as I press start, the game doesn't have any credits to load, so it crashes. So it's an invalid run. Didn't finish the game. Didn't load the credits. But hey, 51 in the marathon. 1 TA skip. Bit of a slow start, but we can be happy with that last hub. But before I go, obviously, if you want to learn this game, there's a Discord server for speedruns. There's a Discord server for time trials. There's also the speedrun.com's forums. And I just want to say a huge thanks to all the guys in the time trial server. These past sort of 6 months or so, I've really been able to improve a lot of this game. There's been a lot of feedback from other guys to sort of push me. So I'll say thanks to all those guys. But that is me for Crash Team Racing. I believe we've got Mike doing Mind Over Mutant, which is a very, very glitchy, fun run. So stick around for that. But yeah, feel free to kick me off.
Yeah, we certainly do. Thank you for that fantastic run.
Okay.
So we'll be sticking with Crash Mind Over Mutants coming up next. For now, we're going to go to a quick intermission while we get set up.